Good night, everyone. John, tonight, God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Irma J. Spirit is Divine. I'm here to give you a word on tonight, and the topic going to be a wise woman, Gabrielle. Oh, this story going to be about Gabrielle, a wise woman who are submitted to her husband, and he going to be a fool. He going to always be acting a fool, and she going to always come to his rescue. And her husband name was Nabi, and he is wealthy. And Gabrielle used her wisdom before approaching enemies to plead for the safety of her household. Now her husband Abby is a foolish man. And the story gonna come from 1 Samuel chapter 25, 1 through 43. Now this happened after Samuel died. And after they buried him at his home. And now Samuel is the one who had known David when he was a teenager. God had chose David, and he had Samuel to go over and on. So David was close to Samuel. So when he died, he ain't had no need to stay in that town where him and Samuel was at. So when he was a teenager, God chose David, and Samuel was the one to go over there and anoint David. So now Samuel died. So David moved down into the desert. And he met this certain man named Nabal, was there. And he was a very wealthy man. And his wife was named Abigail. So David noticed that Abigail was intelligent and beautiful. David, he gonna spot them beautiful women, and he gonna have so many wives. But her husband was surely a mean in his dealing. Now David was in the desert, and he heard that Nabal was shivering sheep. And now David was a boy. Even when God was when they was looking for David to know him, he was in the field shivering with the sheep. Sheep, now he will be in the field shivering the sheep, and he been doing that since he was a boy. So David sent 10 young men and said to them, now David told his men to go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him. So David being nice. So now David in the desert what Nabal and them said. So their land like right here, and then they got a wall between Nabal and his land, and they both deal with shearing the sheep. And tell him my name and say long life to you, good health to you and your household. Now see David sending his servant over there and telling his servants them what to tell Nabal. Tell him to greet him and tell him long life, good health. So David being nice, so now David concerned because that's what he does. He said it was sheep shearing time. So David said when your shepherd was in his care, see, when his shepherd was in David's care, he took care of it. So now David being nice, and he did not mistreat none of his sheep at all. He did not mistreat them. So David said, be favorable towards my young men, and since we came at a festival time, please give your servant and your son David whatever you can find for them. So this is what he telling his servants to tell Nabal, since they've been taking care of all his sheep. So that means Nabal haven't been going to the field taking care of his stuff. If David never was taking care of him. You know, so David's servant, the men that he sent over there, they told him everything that David said. So now David's saying, since I care for your sheep, give my men anything they want. You know, so now David men arrived to give Nabal this message in David's name, and they waited. Never answered. Not never about to answer. Now in David's message, he was very nice. So now never about to answer. So David's servant, who is this? David. Now he can pretend like he don't, know David. So he insulting David, talking about who is David. Now never trying to say he don't know David. Who is this? Very, is very disrespectful. Who is this son of Jesse? Now, first he acted like he didn't know David. Then he gonna holler about who is this son of Jesse. So now you know he is the son of Jesse. So David said, why should I take my bread and water and the meat I have slaughtered for my shivering and give it to men that's coming from who knows where? Now this man here is just very mean. He just very mean. First it was disrespectful, talking about, well, who is David, and then down the line he gonna holler about Jesse's son. And now he's talking about um why should I give my food and water to people who I don't know, who know where. So this man is very mean and very rude. So now this man never was mean, and David men turned around and went back, and they reported everything to David. So now David men told him everything, and David ready to fight. Now David ready to fight. Now they told him everything. They told him how rude this man was. One pretend like he don't know who David was, just assaulting David. So David said he won't walk. David ready to fight. He won't walk. David told his men, put on your sword, and David put on his. About David took 400 men, went up with David, and while 200 stayed to watch the supplies. So he let 200 stay behind to watch the supplies. He took 400 men with him because he wanted to go bring David down. He ready to fight him. He ready to go to war. So they were taking 400 men along to fight and leave 200 to watch over the supplies. Now we see that David don't play. David don't play. You remember when he was a boy, he beat that giant down. Beat that giant down with a slingshot. Even though it was God power that gave him to knock it down, but it was the courage that he stood up against that giant. So that means David can stand up against anybody to try to bring him down. So David don't play. You remember when David had beat that giant down? Not only he beat a giant down, but it was God's strength. But he had the courage as a boy to stand up to a big giant. So now, one of the servants told on every wife. Now, one of the servants told every Gabriel told Gabriel that David sent messages from the desert to give to our master, and his greetings, but he insulted them, So yeah, David man was good to us. Now he's saying good things about David. He said his master insulted David and his men, and then he also said that David men was good to him. So they did not mistreated us. He said David men did not mistreated them. David men was good to us, and they did not retreat us. And the whole time, nothing wasn't missing. Because you remember David said that earlier. David said, "I took care of your sheep. Nothing was missing. We did not mistreat it at all." So now the servant told her also, night and day, there was a wall around us all the time. Remember I said earlier, David right here, David in the desert, David right here, but it had a wall between it. So they on this side shivering the sheep, David on this side. And so he's saying there was a wall between them the whole time. They said David and his men did not mistreat them or did not do them wrong at all the whole time. So now the servant telling her to think about it. So the servant told her, think about it and see what you're going to do about it. Because it's her husband being mean and rude, acting a fool. So the servant said, do something about it, because the servant telling her that David men did not mistreat them at all. He said nothing was missing. Now, because a disaster is hanging over our master and y'all whole household. So now, he telling her it's your whole household. So she really about to get involved. Now this a wise woman. She about to start thinking quickly, because this is dealing with a whole household. Now her husband put danger to the whole household, and now she about to step in. Now he is a wicked man that no one can talk to him. That's why the servant came to the wife. because they cannot talk to him. They say he just too wicked to even try to talk to. So now after the servant finished talking to with Gabrielle, she didn't um waste no time. She got her food to bring to David, and she did load up everything on her donkey. She load up she got all the food, but then she loaded up on her donkey. And she told her servant to go ahead of her that she gonna follow. And after while she doing all this here, she never told her husband, until she come back. She never told her husband. She got up all the food and she going straight to David. Now she thinking quick, what's she gonna do? How she gonna handle David on the behalf of her husband with a bad behavior? So why is she going towards David and his men came towards her? Now why is she going to David? David ain't coming to her, because they were heading on to her house. They was heading on to her house. They were going to destroy her whole household. They were going to bring her husband down and everything. So she got there just in time before David and his men got to her house. Because they were going to destroy her in the household and her husband. So Gabrielle, in an act of courage, she had courage to be a woman to get on that donkey and go and be towards. And remember, David had 400 men heading on to her house. So Gabrielle is an act of courage. She had courage. And if she saw David, she knelt face down in the dirt and applause forgiveness. Now, she went to David and got down on her knees for forgiveness for her husband, for his bad behavior. Now, never her husband was the cause of this terrible threat of revenge against her entire household. So that's why she really had to step in, because the danger was on her household. They were going to kill her too. Everybody in that household. So this is not the first time Gabrielle said she had to step forward to help her husband with his own bad behavior. She said he did this multiple times. So she had to be wise all the time to keep on stepping in to take care, take up for her husband. So this is not the first time Gabrielle had to think fast to cover up her husband's bad behavior. Never was a fool. Even his name meant fool. Gabrielle said this wasn't the first time. He had bad behavior. He acting like a fool to someone, and she had to step in. She always had to step in, because that's just how he is. And by she a good woman, she staying by her husband no matter what. Because she said whatever he was. She said whatever he was. See, this is a woman that was submitted to her husband. That's one of these women that no matter what a man do, she gonna stick by his side. Whatever he was her husband, and she submitted to him. Now she was a faithful wife. They have very few wives like her. She said whatever he was, that was my husband. And no matter what, she was going to stick by her husband. No matter what kind of fool he is, she was going to stick by her husband. Because when she in that marriage, she was in it to be in it. So no matter what kind of behavior he was, she going to always step forward. And she wasn't going to leave him. So Gabrielle asked David to put the blame on her. Now this is another thing. He caused the problem. He caused the danger on her whole household. But she goes to David and bows down for forgiveness and say, blame her, not her husband. So she want to take full responsibility of her husband's behavior. So now Gabrielle asks David to put the blame on her. Her quick thinking to gather food for David army reflect her intelligence. Now Gabrielle is a good wife to her husband. She putting all the blame on herself, because this reflects her household. She will do anything for David 400. Remember, David had 400 men heading on to her house. So this reflects her household. And she will do anything to stop David from destroying her household. So this is a woman that think quick on her toes. So she hurry up and pack food and everything and got no donkey. She get all that food that she packed, she give it to David. She give it to David. And she got down on her knees and asked David for forgiveness for her husband. Now she was wise in reaching to David's soul to pull out his own better nature. Now her trust was rewarded. And remember, she was beautiful. She was beautiful in David's eyesight. David saw that at the beginning. So David realized that the law had used this beautiful woman to correct a jerk fool reaction that he would have long regret, a reaction that would have placed him outside of God's will and faith. So he David saying, David's a godly man. David said the way he treat people, he will be out of place, outside of God's will. You know, because he was just that was just totally mean. That what he did to David. That disrespect. David is a king. You know, in high position, and he gonna act like he don't know who David was, but then he gonna turn around. Oh, so that's Jesse's son. But at first you act like you didn't know who David was. Now surely, she brought him into God's presence and offered godly counsel. So 10 days. So his wife Gabrielle told Nabal. Now remember when she got in her donkey to go towards David to apply for forgiveness for her husband, she did not tell her husband she was gone. He would have stopped. She got all that food for David, and she did and left out that house, and she did not tell her husband she was going to David's house. So now she back. So when so now his wife Gabrielle told Nabal, her husband, everything what he had done. 'Cause remember he never told her how he treated David. You know, and his heart fell when she told him everything that she know what he did to David. His heart fell him, and he become like a stone. 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal and he died. So he was just so mean to people. And then be mean to his wife, because she is a good woman. No matter what kind of person he was, she always was stepping forward on his behalf. So he was just being rude to her and just being mean to people. That David was very nice when he sent his servant over there with a nice message. So when David heard that Nabal was dead, David thanked God for upholding my cause against Nabal for treating him with contempt. Now David said that God brought Nabal wrongdoing down on his own head. So David thanking God, because Nabal treated David, he assaulted David. David's a king, and everybody know David, but he wouldn't act like he didn't know David. So David is thanking God because he thanked God got rid of him because of him. So he thanking God because God had strike him down, and he was dead right then and there. So now Gabriel's husband is dead, and now David sent word to Gabriel asking her to become his wife. That David. Now you remember the other story I said when he saw the Bathsheba on the roof, and he had her husband killed, and then after he said he sent his servant over there say I want to marry, but these women here, all David can say I want you to be my wife, and he just said, and the women just say yes, they say yes. He got so many wives, so he asked her to become his wife, and his servant went and said to Gabriel, David has sent us uh, to you to for you to become his wife. So now the woman husband is dead, and now here David wants to marry her, even though he was a fool, but still David didn't waste no time. Soon as the man is died, he sent his servant over there for the man wife. But David don't waste time. He wants to marry Gabriel. Because remember early on he said she is very beautiful and intelligent. So now David asking Gabrielle to be his wife. Without a background glance, she ain't asked no question or nothing. Without a background glance, Gabrielle left her life. Now remember, she was rich because her husband was rich, and he died. He left, everything is left for her. So she already is rich, So she left everything to be with a man that on the run. Because David always was on the run. Now Saul is dead, you know. Oh no, Saul's still alive, but he always on the run. So she left everything, to be with a man that constantly on the run. He always on the run. He never at a spot. That's why he in a desert, hiding out. So her husband, Neri, caused danger for her whole household, but challenged not to panic when faced the danger. God giving insight to handle problems, and in her life dealing with her husband with bad behavior, Gabrielle had to learn to think quickly and intelligent way. And David noticed it and and he noticed it in her beauty. Cause remember early on, he said she beautiful and intelligent. So that's good to be beautiful and smart and wise and have wisdom, have all that at the same time. To use our wisdom and ability to serve of the will of God. Because all that come from God. Intelligent, wisdom, wise, all that come from God. So I'm gonna read 1 Samuel 25:32-33. David says to Gabriel, praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed. So David saying, thank you, Gabriel. Because David can tell, and David told that giant down and then took the giant head off. Because David good in the field. He good for tan animals and everything else. So he told Gabriel, thank you. Thank you for me shedding blood on your husband. Because he was about to tear her husband up in that whole household. So he told Gabriel, thank you, because she got to David just in time. Because he was heading on to her house. You know? So Gabriel husband is dead, but she married David. Without asking any questions, without hesitating. She just said yeah, and she married David. And we see that she was very wise, and she took care of her husband. She was a submissive wife that no matter what her husband did, she took care of her husband. She took care of him, no matter how foolish he was. She said that was my husband. When she married, she all the way down for her husband. And God wanted us to be submissive to our husband, but some husband is sometimes it's so hard to be submissive to him. That someone be a fool, and she just was a good woman that just stuck with all that, until his last days. So she gonna be a good wife to David. Because she already said, David wants to make her a wife, and she always talking about, oh, I come cook clean. He ain't said for you to be a servant. He said he wants you to be a wife. See, she's so used to being submissive to a man, so she like that with everybody. David's a king. So she gonna be a queen, and she talking about going over there washing and cooking and cleaning and all this kind of stuff. You're not a servant. David wants you to be his wife. So uh, her husband was a foolish man, and he had bad behavior. And no matter how bad behavior he was, she stepped to the plate. And she not did it one time. She did it multiple times with his bad behavior. Always had to think quick on her toes to always put him out of a jam. And she put him out this jam because she got to David just in time because he was heading on to her house. He was about to destroy her husband, and he was about to destroy her and that whole household. So she had to think quick on her toes, because she didn't want her whole household to be destroyed because of her husband. So I hope you enjoyed this word, and and have a blessed night. And I see y'all on the next video.